Welcome everybody, and this is a special meeting of the Housing Committee for July 9th, 2025. I'm Kathy Hunter, and I will be chairing tonight's meeting. And tonight we are joined by Mary Dean, Jim Graham, Christopherson, Lou Schaefer, and Warner Marshall, and Elaine Feldman. So we do have a quorum. I don't have a copy. Is that a copy of the agenda? You are so sure. So we have a very short agenda, and I made it so short that I forgot to put approval of minutes on the agenda. But since we didn't have any copies made, we could table that to next meeting.
Well, we got the minutes from Mary twice.
Right. I know, but I didn't actually put the approval on the minutes. And since it's a special meeting, we can't change the agenda, but that's okay. We could have it for next meeting. So the first item on our agenda is a debrief of community conversations and next steps. So we did have our community conversation that David Fink facilitated on June 30th at the Center Cafe, and I thought it went pretty well. I thought it was a good conversation. So I'll just open it up for folks that were there, what your feelings, reactions were to the conversation. I know Chris was on vacation.
I watched it.
Yeah.
We were there.
You watched it? Okay, good. Did you get a chance to watch it?
Yeah, I thought it was, David did a very good job. I think he's unflappable, just handles all kinds of questions with calm and in a very pleasant demeanor. I like the idea that we shortened the film. I thought it stopped just at the right point to give people the idea of what it was trying to show. I loved some of the affordable housing developments that were shown, and I think it was well received. I liked the questions. They were it seemed like an audience that was really mostly interested in learning more about the topic and receptive to learning about the topic. And I don't know if it's just too much to comment on the last comment of the evening that I thought was just so interesting for those of you who were there or watched it. It was a woman who works in Westport who hires teachers and other school personnel. And I think if I understood her correctly, basically what she was saying was that this was sort of deja vu of a conversation that was going on in Westport 10 years ago when she was having such a hard time recruiting teachers because teachers couldn't live in Westport and they didn't want to be commuting to Westport and stuck in 95 traffic in the southern part of Connecticut. And now that they have many more options for people to live, that the recruiting process was vastly improved.
Yeah.
And, I've heard that from other towns also. We've heard that at the SCROG meetings. So I thought it was a good way to end.
Yeah, no, I thought.
How many people were there other than the committee and David?
I didn't really count.
I didn't count them.
Somebody said 25, 30.
About
It seemed,
25, I think.
would you say 25,
Yeah.
30? Somebody.
Any new faces?
Yeah.
Yeah, there were some new faces. So, I think it was a good, representation of different views, which I thought made it for a good conversation. So any other comments?
Did Beaker attend?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Did he speak?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was keen to correct some of the comments that were made, particularly about the cost of schools.
Not sure what you said, but
Oh, sorry. I said he was keen to make sure that appropriate corrections were made to some of the remarks about the cost of school, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it was a good forum to address a lot of the misinformation, but particularly some folks bring up the housing development. They call it Avalon Bay. I think it's called actually Grand Reserve. To say, comparing high density apartment would be like that development, where there's 2 buses that go into development every day. And I think I just found that amusing because there's always going to be different buses because you have a bus for elementary school, you have a bus for the middle school, and you have a bus for the high school. So you're going to have, even if you have like 1 student in the piece, you're always going to have at least 3 buses going in. But the major difference in that development is that there's a lot of 3-bedroom units in there. So yeah, there is going to be a higher propensity for having families in there as opposed to a development that has studios, 1 bedrooms, and 2 bedrooms.
Maybe 2 bedrooms.
Yeah. So I thought that
he
was
did,
good.
and this is neither here nor there, but he did mention in conversation afterwards that he had searched for the source of the quote that they were never going, these units were never going to increase the number of school children in the schools. And he said he could not find that. He said if a developer's trying to make that point, they're going to make it very loudly. And he said he couldn't find it written anywhere. So that has yet to be uncovered, if it can be uncovered, if you care whether it's uncovered or not. Question for me was whether, as you're saying, whether it was really intended to have, to allow school children to live there because the size of the units was such as.
Oh yeah, I think they wanted housing, there was families, that needed housing, and so they made sure that there was a mix of housing, and they built a playground, so of course they did intend to have children. So I mean, it's they wanted to make sure they met the needs of the community.
Yeah.
Where is it located?
It's on Prindle Hill, like if you go
Yeah, I know.
behind where Christmas
Yeah.
tree used to be.
I know where Prindle Hill is.
Yeah, back there. But it's for people that need a place to live. It's a nice apartment complex, and I'm sure people are very happy there. So, anyway.
One of the things that struck me about this conversation that we hadn't really talked about before was his advice that we convene a meeting at which developers are invited to come and speak.
That's right.
And talk to individuals in the community and to the town and that we need to first develop what we want, what the town needs, and then where we're going to put it, and then talk to people about how to get that done. But until you actually talk to these developers, his inference, if I understand correctly, was that, you just don't know what they're thinking, and you can ascribe all kinds of attitudes and
Who was the he was talking about that
limitations.
made this recommendation?
This is David.
David.
Yeah, David did.
Well, it's the importance of getting the community involved. If you're doing a development, to go out and talk to people about the development, to allay any concerns or misconceptions they might have. I know the development in Orange that was done on Smith Neck Road.
Beautiful.
It's
just
beautiful,
beautiful.
and I know that developer went on and knocked on doors around the neighborhood and talked to neighbors about the development and how it was going to look, and she didn't get any problems, any pushback from the neighbors. So I mean that is an important part if you want to develop something that you need to do some outreach and community engagement and let people know what the housing is, what it looks like, and try to get as much. You're not going to get full buy-in, but at least give people a heads up what's coming to the neighborhood.
Now, did David he say that Scrog has relationships with different developers, and he was very clear that not all developers are created equal, and it's so important to find
Find the right one.
the right ones, that don't have a hidden agenda or just not simply I know they often make a profit, I understand, but that really have a dedication to providing decent, affordable housing for folks. And I think they must have a list at Scrog, I'm guessing, where
Yeah, there's a list. I mean, you have good developers and you have developers that are not so good. But certainly, Scrog has had meetings where there was a developer roundtable, and certainly we could do, when we talk about next steps. I think that should be one of our, community conversations, is to have developers come in and talk to people about, what kind of developments could work in Woodbridge. So.
He also made the point that you need to look at their work to make sure that it's high quality. And he gave quite a little shopping list, very short one, but useful for his purposes of actually driving home his point that that you need to make sure that the developer stays in the picture after they finish building their structure.
Right.
And if they don't do that, then there's more of a likelihood that they would walk away and not keep it up, not maintain it, or that they would not build it originally to the standards necessary for it to survive in a good condition. And he pointed out that some of the examples in the video was the second time a developer had been actually asked by one of the communities to come in and produce another set of units.
That's right.
Because they had performed so well in the first place. So you don't need to have to just go out and flip a coin. You can talk to other communities, see other buildings, and talk to the developers. That's very good.
Yeah.
One of the things that struck me in the New Haven Register the other day was an article about a cluster group of homes that were built in Guilford and subsidized, which I thought they looked very nice. People seemed happy. It's a good use of this very small amount of space. Cost is very high though. That was the thing that really struck me, was the cost of them per unit.
The cost to build it.
Cost to build it. I mean,
Yeah.
they're 1,300, I think, to 1,700 square feet. So not big, but the cost was about what Toll Brothers are charging, which I found really interesting. It's in Guilford.
I noticed that there's a housing building going up in West Rock, and I think it's all subsidized housing. And they said the unit price was $517,000, and partly because nonprofit developers are subjected to increased costs.
It's Great Hill Cottage Community.
What's it called?
Great Hill Cottage Community.
Great Hill.
Is that Neighborhood Works or is
It
that?
is Green Planet Company.
Oh, yeah, Green Planet is the construction company, but I think a Neighborhood Works, that's New Horizon Neighborhood Works with Green.
The Guilford people are on our squad group.
Yeah, they are.
I usually wind up sitting next to them.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
by chance, just by chance.
That's a nice development, and I actually have pictures, the schematics of that. I gave that out when I first started. So they had some, I guess, not issues, but they had to do a condo agreement with those homes. But anyway, just going back to why it's so much more expensive when you bring in the subsidies and the public funding, it ends up costing a lot more than having a private developer do it because of the cost of the capital stack. Because it's not one, it's like probably, like 4 different layers of public subsidies, be it tax credits or state funding or federal funding, and then they're subjected to a lot of times Davis-Bacon wages, which means that you have to give them, the prevailing wage, and then they have to be tracked, and then you have to have a project managed. So there's a lot of different layers that goes into, and then you have all the different layers of review to, just even each closing, for the DOH, I remember I used to have to put aside at least like $30,000 just for the closing for the DOH side. So
Wow.
it's just
It's really challenging, I think you summed it up really well. because I watched, you said it's very complicated and very difficult. And
Yeah,
I said, sounds very complicated and difficult.
yes.
This is a nice, I mean, it's a nice outcome, but it's a hard road to get there.
Yeah, that's like the one in Orange. It's the same thing. She had a number of layers of subsidy. And she also had a partnership with the Office of Developmental Disabilities for the subsidies. And so again, it's a lot of layering, and it is complicated. And
But is she also a private developer? Does she wear?
Yes.
Yeah.
well, she's a private developer, but the private developers can also get funding, development funds. So it doesn't have to be nonprofit. I should have. Well, some funding is restricted to nonprofits, but private developers also are subject, that they could
They
also
can
get
also.
get public subsidies as well. So, yeah, so that is interesting. But yeah, that Guilford project is interesting because it's like zero net energy and all that good stuff with that company. Yeah, and I think that would be, and that's so. But anyway, it's all good stuff if you could get the public subsidies in there to do it. All right, so in terms of like next steps, because we want to continue these community conversations. I did send out something tonight as an idea for a conversation. I don't know how much of a community, maybe it could be a community conversation we could have afterwards, but did any people get a chance to look at my email I sent out? Probably.
Just saw the email, I didn't,
The print came out so small.
It's
Yeah, I
pretty,
looked at it very quickly.
it's coming up pretty quickly. though,
It's
isn't
I
it?
think it's
next
July 30th. It's a Zoom meeting.
No, it's
So
23rd. No, that's something else.
no, that's so I think it's July 30th. And it's being put on by the Connecticut Conservation Council, and it has to do with, the intersection of, conservation efforts and affordable housing. And so it's a virtual meeting. And, I was going to send, I was thinking about just sending it out, having people attend. And I thought maybe it might be a good opportunity to get different groups together, be it, the housing committee, conservation, maybe a couple of the land trusts, board of selectmen, and just get people together to actually take part of this meeting and just listen. And then we can maybe have a follow-up conversation on it to see if there's any action steps from attending that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get,
Do you think it will be recorded so people can view it at a different time? Because that would be important. And we're in mid-vacation time. It's
no,
really
I know
challenging.
it's a,
So,
yeah, I mean, they schedule it, they schedule that. Yeah, I'm sure they do videotape those, I'm sure they record it, so I don't think.
Are you suggesting that we zoom in as a group and then have a conversation?
I
or-
thought like if we had a group and we were able to, like just zoom in, it's a virtual meeting, but have a bunch of people attending and just listening at the same time in the same room.
Tim, I'm not sure Tim can even go to that because June 30th
That's
is
what I
our
said to
all-in
Kathy.
meeting.
Yeah, I know, but that's what I was thinking, maybe he's the one that sent it to me.
I know, that's why I'm saying,
So-
maybe he didn't realize it.
Yeah.
We meet every week, but we have in-person meetings once a month and that's it.
Right, so I'm wondering if we think it's a good idea, maybe he would also be interested, because I would think All In would also be interested in attending this meeting. So,
Possibly attend it as a group there.
yeah,
You have to talk.
Yeah.
All in could attend as a group.
Yeah,
yeah,
Well, I noticed that the meeting is an hour and a half long.
right,
So, it's going to contain some things that aren't directly applicable or that we can, speed by if necessary. And more to the point, after an hour and a half, no one's going to want to stop and, continue the conversation for another couple of hours. So it does make some sense to get it recorded and then schedule a discussion of it subsequent and have everybody plan to watch the meeting at their own, whatever convenient to them, and then come to the round table for conversation about
okay, so you're
it. Or maybe we
thinking,
could even, get it.
yeah, I just thought it might be would have been cool if I could just get people to actually participate in the discussion in case people had questions, like maybe somebody from conservation has a question that they want to pose, because it's going to be, they're going to have speakers and it'll be interactive and you'll be able to ask a question. If it was simply, and maybe that's a good point, because if it was just informational session, we could watch it anytime, but it was actually, I was getting the sense that it was interactive.
So who is the audience? Do you know? Is it statewide?
The audience it was on the invitation. I have to look it up. 'Cause I don't have my, why is this not? They said, like housing groups and, let me get my,
Report, it's the findings of the commission report, Connecticut, blah, blah, blah. As a roundtable for staff and board members of land trusts, municipalities, councils of government, housing groups, and anyone interested in the intersection of land conservation and affordable housing. So it sounds like it's
Do you know any of these people? It says facilitated David Hinden, Connie Maines.
Connie Maines,
Maines.
I think she was part of if I'm not mistaken, the Litchfield group.
Explore successful partnerships between land trusts and housing groups. I don't know, I sort of think it might be a better conversation if everybody has a chance to watch it separately and think about it and digest it, and then I would love to get together around this topic. If we
Right.
could make
Not
that
for the
happen.
first time.
Several months ago, having a joint meeting with the Conservation Commission.
Yeah.
I think that would still be something that's important to do.
Well, I think the first thing is to make sure that the conservation people here in town are aware of this, are all aware of this.
Yeah, well, that's-
And that we encourage them to
Right.
watch it. We
Right.
watch it too.
No, I had encouraged them to watch the different, videos and things of that and circle back, but they, I think it's just gonna be a work in progress to get them to.
Well, let's all attend it and see whether it's a suitable thing to,
Yeah.
it may not even prove to be something that we can build on.
All right, that's
Yeah.
that's a good first step,
Yeah.
because maybe it's not something we.
Kent is a very different type of community than Woodbridge.
Yeah, well, it's not necessarily, the where, but it's the idea of how a land trust and the need for housing can work together. So I think open space is open space. They had talked about, they're, in one of the videos, they had open space that had road frontage and how they identified that as a good area for housing. So it's just like, it just kind of spurs that type of conversation. Maybe there's just some areas within the, miles and miles of, open space that maybe there's some sections that could be used for housing, that would be suitable for housing. But, okay, so our next step will be to independently watch this, see if it's, and then I'll get this out to conservation and Coopop and different groups to encourage them to watch it, and then we could just circle back to see whether or not we want to use this as a basis for
Sponsor a community conversation
Yeah.
based on it.
Yeah.
I think there'd be a great deal of value in picking up on it and making it local. That when we went to that land use an affordable housing conference a couple of years ago, now 3 years ago, your husband, me, Kathy Wick, Brian Pines, I don't know anybody else from Woodbridge. It was great, they had good ideas and it was all, everybody was happy. And then with time,
I know.
it's all theoretical, it's all sort of abstract. If you say, okay, here we have a spot here in Woodbridge that illustrates this possibility, let's talk about what's wrong with that and what's right with that. I think that would bring it all home.
Yeah,
in a way
yeah,
that-
yeah.
That would be very useful.
Maybe it's like, criteria, adding, the propensity for affordable housing within, like, your determination whether or not you want to take something from open space. Maybe that's another box that they could check. So it doesn't necessarily have to be all open space. There is a possibility that this could be a good, site for housing, then they could put that in their equation when to take open space in.
Yeah, in so many cases, of course, it's not going to be suitable here locally because we don't have the infrastructure for a lot of the spots that you might think of. As
Well, I
suitable.
mean, there's, there's a lot of technology, and in Guilford, because that's all on septic sewer. So there's a lot, depending on whether or not there's access to water, depending on the soil type, there's some areas that even though you don't have access to public water, public sewer, you're still able to potentially be able to do a subsurface septic system because of the different advantages, technology
And even
advances.
if we can't now, in 10 years, 20 years, sites may become available.
Yeah.
It's more a question
You're gonna need one.
of my
You're
mind.
gonna need either water or sewer, public water, public sewer. You gotta have one of those two.
No, actually, these developments I'm pretty sure
I'm gonna study a little more. of that.
yeah, no, because
I think of Bradley Highlands in Woodbridge, which is built on half-acre or smaller lots. They've had issues with cross-contamination between wells and septic because they're built so close together. And there really isn't a good plan to fix it because the town would have to pay to put water or sewer there. And that's a challenge.
yeah,
Makes it
It
difficult.
depends on the soil types and all the rest of
Exactly.
that. Yeah,
right.
you
But-
can't really know until you, but in 10 or 20 years, we may have some technology we don't even imagine.
Yeah, well,
Well,
Bradley
again,
Highlands will
one of
be
the
a
challenges with
challenge.
Bradley Highlands is most of those houses were summer cottages. And my dad built 3 houses up there and he had to put in an engineered septic system so there was no cross-contamination on what he was doing. But it was an expensive project, not outrageously expensive, but it was costly, but it worked. But the summer cottages that were there in the early part of the 20th century, those didn't have that engineering. So maybe in 10 years there will be a difference. It's true.
Well, there is advances now because Aaron Hoffman did a presentation because I'm pretty sure they're the developers on this project, and he talked about another project they did in Guilford that was I think like 40 units they did on a septic sewer system. So it is there's a
That's
yeah.
you said it's a
It's
40
coming.
unit project
I
in
think it's
Guilford.
40 units. We probably have that information.
I was
on it.
just thinking it's probably somewhere.
Yeah, we probably have it. I'll dig it up.
That's so familiar.
Yeah. No, so it is, it's doable. It's doable now. I mean, maybe 35 years ago when the, Blue Ribbon Commission from DEEP came out to say that you needed 2-acre zoning. But there's been a lot of advances in technological advances in septic sewer.
Which is highly advantageous if you think about it, because then you have another way of picking the best site for multiple reasons,
Yeah.
not just the only site, because it's the only place that has water and sewer. There's a
So-
lot to be said for it.
And actually, the person that was Sunwood Developers that has done a number of these type of developments in areas that don't have the infrastructure. He talked about
Yeah,
the,
if you have that info, if you can share,
Yeah.
that'd be great.
in fact,
I'm curious.
Sprague has, if you could remind me, if I don't send it out, Sprague has recordings of all of their informational sessions, and they had one particular session that was a nitty-gritty details on waste management or something
Oh,
like
yeah.
that. It had a very catchy title.
Yeah.
And and they talked about it, and they talked about how you're able to do this. Again, there's a couple, you have to, it is dependent. You can't do it everywhere, and you can't do it on a ledge, you can't do it on, where there's bad soil. It works better if you have, actually have public water. You don't have the public sewer, but you have public water, that helps as well. So there are areas that have public water but not public sewer, so that opens up a lot more sites. So anyway, okay. So I think we have some really good ideas for after September. Hopefully we're all on this commission after September.
What's the news there?
Actually, I guess this is related to our next steps. I want to say it's related to our next steps.
Okay.
That the ordinance committee did meet on doing a ordinance on a housing commission. I got to look at it briefly, and there's some things that I think need to be clarified on there, but they're supposed to be taking it up tonight, so.
So our fate is being decided as we
our fate-
speak?
Yeah, I
Can we
know.
go in and just sort of say?
We haven't been like asked, I kind of like formally, I showed up once, at a meeting and they were saying things that were not correct, and I tried to correct them, like, no, you can't talk. I'm like, okay. But you're saying things that are not correct. But then I formally asked to be part of the meeting, but I don't know.
When did the ordinance committee meet? Was it recently, right?
Recently, I think
Yeah.
it was this week. Was it this week? The last week? But it was pretty recent. So I think I think it has to go, when you have ordinance, I think it has to go for public hearing. So we might want to provide some public comments on that to make sure that the commission is empowered to do something meaningful. And again, I do know that there's only going to be 6 members, so they're cutting our membership. So someone's going to have, at least those that are under the Democratic banner will have to select straws. Because I think we do have our minority representation here. But again, we'll see what happens after tonight, if there's any more details on that. So,
I would think that they would probably hold off on filling that commission until after the election, wouldn't they?
I don't know. I thought about that as well, but I don't know.
That would make the most sense, so
Yeah.
we'll see if they do that or not.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. So, okay. Anything else? Any other thoughts on community conversations? We have a couple ideas.
One of the things that struck me about the conversation with David Fink and then with the 4 other presenters at the end of April was they all talked about, it's up to you, talking to the people. It's up to you to decide what types of housing. I think at some point, and I'm not sure when that point is, but at some point there should be some sort of meeting or forum where people are allowed to say, we want this, we want that, we don't want this, we don't want that. And maybe it's, here are the options, here's the menu, here's what we think are the pros and cons of the menu, and then have a conversation with people about what they want. I think if we were to be able to do that, that might minimize the battling that's been going on for the last 11 months since I've been on this.
20, 30 years,
But,
maybe?
well, I mean,
No.
3 years probably,
Yeah,
but
as we go.
I mean, I've only been involved for 11 months, but it's the most challenging thing I've ever done in this town. And I've worked on boards and commissions for 30 years, and I've never worked on a project that's been this divisive. So I really hope that we can figure a way to get people in to say, okay, this is what we want, and it's going to work for 70 to 80%. Not going to work for everybody, because it never does. But if you get buy-in from 70 to 80%, I think that would be ideal.
I think the question is 70 to 80% of who, because the commissions, this group that we represent, be it whatever group you represent, you really are representing the voice of the voiceless. And the same 30 or 50 people that show up to public hearing with the same mantra is not representative of the needs of Woodbridge. And I could tell you, there's so many people whose needs are not represented, and we have to make sure that the people that don't have a voice around the table are represented. When we listen to David Morgan from Team speak. He talked about how over 300 households, he serviced over 300 households of Woodbridge residents that came in with needs for housing, for food insecurity, for energy. But those 300 households are not people that are showing up for public hearing. I could tell you that.
Well, then they need people need to reach out to them.
Well, right.
Because they need to be heard.
The people, you talk about, the ALICE, people that categorized under the ALICE category, which is, ASSA limited income constraint employee. These are folks that are like a paycheck away from housing instability. They're people that are just they're working poor. They live in there's I think they said, I forget the percentage, but it came out to like 280 households of people that are categorized under the ALICE categories.
In Woodbridge?
In Woodbridge, yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I question whether the way our power right now, and I don't know what changes when the ordinance committee makes things change, but right now, we have no power to do anything. We're here as a think tank, and we don't have to represent anybody. We're supposed to recommend what's good and what's doable, and then somebody else makes that decision. If we'll have decision-making capability in the future, then it may kick in that we have to represent people. But right now, the way it stands, I don't see why that's...
I think we need to represent people who...
Yeah, but that's what the experts all unified said. We should be, it's up to you, pointing to the audience, it's up to you to decide what you want as a town, and we're here to help facilitate that.
But realize, they're
here,
talking to people, what they are assuming that audience is united in their desire to build additional housing, preferably affordable housing, in the way that is best suited to their community.
You think they all felt like the audience was united in that?
That's what I'm saying.
No, they're not thinking that. They know they're not.
What they're saying is, what we know as a result of the work
But
that
those
we've
experts
done
know that audience is divided.
is that we all have, our community has a responsibility to do certain things.
Yeah.
Right.
We know, as a result of what we have learned, that there are severe limitations in the range of possibilities from which you can choose. You can't just have anything at any price to meet your whatever it is that you want. So what we do, what we're supposed to be doing, is helping people understand those limitations and helping people put their finger on the scale, on the side of affordable housing, instead of saying, we can't have it just the way we want it, so we're not going to do anything. No, you can't.
That's not at all what I'm talking about.
I hope so.
I'm talking about.
They're talking about.
Who's talking about?
The individuals who are hearing those words and interpreting them as saying, "Oh, we get whatever we want."
No.
And that's,
okay. They get a say because it's their town.
Right.
We all get a say, and we should have an opportunity at some point, and it's probably going to be after there's a new commission, but at some point people need to get a say. And how do we want to do this? It shouldn't be top down. Okay? We should provide information. We should provide options, pros and cons. And now, what do you think we should do?
No, and I'll give my
it's
example
our
again.
job to make recommendations. That is our charge.
Yes.
We have to do that.
Yep.
So even if we agree that that is the optimal way to proceed, it's an impractical way to proceed, first of all. And secondly, it would be a violation of our charge. We are responsible to our fellow citizens to help them understand what the options are.
Well,
and
we're talking about going forward, right? You said going forward. Let's look. I'm looking forward.
right.
Okay.
But we have the plan, and we already have it here. We can't make it go.
We're going to work on the plan.
Yeah, but I'm going to say again, Jeff, and I agree with what Mary just said when she explained it more, but the example I've given before, the people in Selma, Alabama were thrilled with what O'Connor was doing. Our job is to educate. That was our charge.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what our charge will be in the future. It may be different, but our charge isn't to legislate, it's to make recommendations. Our recommendations have various things weighing on it, lawsuits, the need for doing certain things. And we make those recommendations, but I don't think even if when we're a commission, will we have any power to do anything? other than make recommendations.
Right, that's
we're
all
an
we have
advisory
power.
power.
Right, so I think in terms of the I think our biggest power would be in educating
Yeah.
people.
And I would agree with
And I
that.
do think that people were educated, you know, at a community conversation.
Mhm.
And the other task is really how to bring everybody, you know, to reflect the needs of everybody in the community, and how to bring those people most in need of housing, how to get their voices heard. Because again, there's so many groups of people that are not coming out to public hearings. They're not part of this organized effort. You know, they just don't have the wherewithal to do that. And how do you reach those people so we could, you know, so they have a voice?
How did the
That
woman, how did the
is
woman in
part of our
Orange reach her
charge.
neighbors? She knocked on their doors. Maybe that's what it requires, just to go knock on doors
Yeah.
of people.
Well, in a sense, that's what we're all talking about. We're talking about how do we answer people's questions? How do we make them feel more comfortable with the concepts and with the legal requirements? How do we make them feel that they can come to us and talk about it? I think I've mentioned to you, I have some friends who are very, very much on another side of this thing for me that I've known for many years. And one of them said to me, I'm so glad I know somebody on the Affordable Housing Committee, so I know who I can ask my questions to. I can find out what's really going on.
Yeah.
And this is somebody who I disagree with across the board, and she disagrees with me. But that's what we'd really like to see, somebody, them to, not to have this face-to-face stuff, you know, really, what is best for our community? It has to be a combination of affordable housing, higher density, for all the economic reasons and so forth. But we need to help articulate those things.
We have to articulate that
as best
better.
as possible.
And we also have to articulate it in a framework. It's not affordable housing, like we're going to build all this massive affordable housing. It's going to be what do we need to do, and how would we recommend doing it?
Yeah.
What does the town need to do? The town needs to do something. We're not just going to recommend it. You should do this. They're going to say yes or no. But within a framework, okay? I think that's part of what we're doing with this plan.
Some of it, you can do it that way in a large sense. You can do it by looking at one suggestion. This is one suggestion that we have. We have a number of goals and suggestions in the plan. And if you can focus on one of them, instead of saying, well, if we do everything that we could possibly do, you know, the town will be overwhelmed. No, that's not helpful. You just talk about how one thing can be done first and then another. Strategy.
Okay. Well, I think we go for that agenda item. All right, so we have some, you know, next steps. We'll maybe next conversation will be the affordable housing conservation. And then talk about bringing some developers in and just having like a roundtable discussion, and we can come up with some.
And maybe when and if that big Connecticut housing bill ever does get passed,
Yes.
if it does get passed, we might have a community conversation.
Yeah, that's,
about
I'm happy you brought that up, because, I mean, something is going to be passed when, you know, like they talked about doing it.
Special session, like,
Yeah, it's gonna be special session. They wanted to do it sooner than later, but, you know, if not, you know,
yeah.
this month, it'll be in September, and something is going to be passed where there's gonna be a tweaking of the language. But there is going to be
The lack of parking in that bill is a real problem. The fact that you could build without having any parking requirements is a real problem. Okay, and I think about my neighborhood. There are vacant commercial spaces in my neighborhood. If they build and they have no parking requirement, they're going to park in other businesses' parking lots. Okay, businesses pay taxes on that parking lot. It's not like you don't pay tax on your driveway or your sidewalk, but we pay taxes on our parking lots. So you're basically, it's a taking of a business's parking lot for somebody else's use. All right, and that's one of the big problems with that. There's a couple, but that was one, and I think the governor mentioned that. But hopefully they'll work that out, because you need to have parking. You need to have parking for housing, period. You need to have parking for housing. You can't have housing without parking.
Well,
in
there's some,
2025.
yeah, there's some parking requirements, like people are requiring like 4 parking spaces for ADU.
That's
Yeah.
different.
Yeah, and
That's not allowed anymore, by the way.
Yeah.
You can't have excessive parking
But there's,
requirements.
but there are some, yeah, but I think they come to a happy medium on
But
it.
there needs to be a happy medium.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Which is what, everything should be a happy medium. Too
So,
much division.
but there will be a number, and we'll have to, you
There
know.
will be a bill too.
There will be bill, and our next rendition is not gonna be in this, but our next, you know, we have to start preparing, or whoever is on the commission will have to start
So
preparing.
it's gonna be a bit challenging, because if the commission's created, let's say November time or December time, they're gonna have a year and a half to redo the whole thing, right? 2027 has to be done. It's kind of a short time frame. See how it goes.
Yeah, we'll have to start, I mean, definitely would have to start sometime in 2026 to start working on 2027.
Well, it's not like we have to start from scratch.
Yeah, no, we do have a
That's the
basis.
advantage.
No, you don't have
We
to
have a
start from scratch.
POCD
You're right.
and all
There's a
this
basis.
Hey, Jane, there you go.
You know, I'd be thinking about one of the, you know, I don't know how you outreach to people who are, I mean, one of the things we want to do is make the place attractive for some people who want to come in here.
Mhm.
But they're not necessarily residents now. I guess you got to convince people in the town that you need more places for teachers, police, whatever. But those people aren't, you know, they're not the ones coming and say, hey, we want to move in here, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, because it's not only people in our town that are in need of, you know, more affordable housing, it's people that work within the town, that like to be part of the town, but don't even think about being part of the town because they can't afford it.
Yeah, so I mean, some of the things we may want to try to suggest is, you know, how to make the town more attractive for people who we want to come in.
Yeah.
And make judgments about that, and just sort of at least, you know, try to figure out who they are and what they are, and how to get them here and how to accommodate them. But they're not going to come to any meetings.
No,
You know?
no,
They don't live here. They
No.
don't get invited.
no.
We're not really on the radar.
Well, when we did this survey, we tried to reach out to the teachers and other public employees. And we also got some responses from people, at least one person whose child or children went to school here and they couldn't afford to live here. So, you know, there were voices coming to us from these quarters, but not in the same, you know, not as many as one might want to hear.
I guess what I was thinking is we shouldn't forget about that.
Yeah.
You know, I think.
Well, sometimes you just know what's right even though nobody is telling you.
Hold these streets to be self-evident.
You just know it's right.
Okay, Mary, can I call on you to kind of run us through the update of the affordable housing plan? And I appreciate everybody providing some comments.
We can't project it, can we?
No, I didn't plan for that.
Can we project it?
So-
You can, I'm not sure how to use this new thing.
Well, if everybody has a copy of it or some version of a copy of it.
Does everybody have a version?
We're in
I do on
business,
my
it's
computer.
just sort of.
The one you sent out yesterday.
I mean, it doesn't have,
Do you have?
Kathy's is the most recent one.
Okay,
I
so everybody has
actually
a copy of it.
Yeah, I printed the one that
actually
you had
went
sent last with comments.
through it
Yeah.
and made a couple additional changes to it.
All right, so we all have a copy, so why don't
You
we?
have some kind of copy. Okay, so there are a couple of well, first of all, one overriding comment I would make is nobody worry about details of language or layout, because those things you don't even know what you're working with until you finish with the big subjects. So leave that to me, and it just means regrettably that everybody's going to have to read this through again after it's in fair copy, after it's cleaned up.
Put up your microphone. Oh, you don't have one.
I'm sorry, my voice is a
Forgets
mess.
about the others.
It's even more of a mess than it usually is. So maybe I shouldn't be the person who is speaking. because we do have all of these comments in here, but so that's just the first thing. The second thing is there were a few big issues, particularly what and how, which documents we're going to use for our citations and whether those are acceptable. I think you probably looked at it since our notes, and you noticed that they're, you know, that SCROG is updated, it's housing, I mean, it's
But they're still using
town
the
thing.
same sources. That's a challenge. Look, I'm going to say it right now. The American Community Survey is not accurate, okay? And I looked back, because I sent an email in February to the committee, you know, here's some documents that explain the problems with the American Community Survey. I want to make sure we have accurate data, because this is going to be the first thing. People are going to look and say, oh, that's wrong,
Well,
right?
you know,
So let's figure out how to do this so they can't say it's wrong.
Chris,
So-
I did
Either
talk
correct.
to,
okay,
Go ahead.
you're
I did talk to our planners, I talked to
Mhm.
Goldman York, I talked to SLR,
Yep.
and I talked to as to whether or not there's any other data sources we could
Okay.
use given the limitation of the American Community Survey. And they said, you know, this is the data database that all planners use, and there is no other you know, sources, and they understand that it's not 100%, but you're not going to get 100%, but it does
It's
provide.
not even
It has
close.
a very, very significant, you know, margin of error.
Yeah.
Okay.
The margin of error is so
Okay.
significant that it's unusable.
But.
Go ahead,
Fair.
sorry.
Fair. But there is no, you know, there's
Nothing
some
else.
other data, and you know, look, I mean, it doesn't have, we don't have to be exact. I mean, we probably don't have to spend a lot of time
No.
talking about population and demographics because, you know, it's speculative.
Well, you're right, and I was thinking about this as well. We have a lot of data, we talk about population, if the population's declining, we need more people. Okay, then this doesn't support that. Take that whole out, take it entirely out of it. What we're trying to do, we recognize there's a problem with affordable housing. We need affordable housing. We should be looking at how does Woodbridge build affordable housing? We don't need to put in data about how much people make, how many people live here. We don't need to put that data in there because it's not germane. We have to find a way to build affordable housing.
And I couldn't
Right.
give you a few more.
I-
I
have
took the words right out of my mouth.
Page
That's
affordable
exactly-
housing plan.
Chris, I'm even agreeing with you on that
Okay,
one.
So let's do 2.5 as the key thing.
Yeah, the only
Yep,
data point we need to
yep.
be concerned about is the fact we only have 1.24% affordable housing, and whether or
Right
not
now.
the population.
Right now, so now we've got to find a way to get more affordable housing. And we need to look at the different types of affordable housing that would be available and present those. I mean, I'm thinking, why are we not putting pictures from that video
Yeah.
to show people what affordable housing looks like? Because people don't know unless you show it. Put it in the affordable housing plan, not the drawing on the
our
cover.
pictures of it. You
No,
know.
put something in there to show.
Give me one of the third graders.
We will, Chris. We're not gonna do it for this, because we're gonna have to be
But
working.
I came to the same.
Yeah, because what we're trying to do, we're banging our head against the wall here. There's a bigger issue, and it's how do we build diverse, affordable housing? How do young people stay in town because they leave, because they can't afford to live here?
Sing it
How
to
do
the
old
choir.
people stay in town because they leave? What was that?
You're singing to the choir.
Yeah, so let's figure that out.
Good.
Well, but
That's
So
great.
But that's what, we're all on
We
the
are on the same page.
so I would just like to add one more thing. Now, it depends on what of these various things you're talking about, but in most cases, if not all, our conclusions, our inferences here certainly do not depend on the details of a data point.
Of course.
So you could say, just as an example, you could say, if the population was in fact taking a huge nosedive, well, you've got a municipal problem there, and you need to address it in certain ways. If it's not taking a municipal nosedive, you should not say it is, right?
Correct.
Right.
But it doesn't really matter from the point of view of the overall
Right.
The thing is,
attitude there.
if our population is
So
taking a
it's-
nosedive, one can make the argument, we need a lot more housing because our population
All
is
right, but
taking a
it's
nosedive.
not.
But because it's
So-
not, we maybe don't need as much housing. So those are where we're gonna get into
From
the
that
nuances.
perspective.
Wow.
From that
From
that
perspective.
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 And there are other
That's
groups
why-
that handle 10-year plans, 30-year plans for Woodbridge. That's not our mission.
Right,
Our
but I-
mission is to provide affordable housing.
Yeah, and I did provide information from the POCD, and I talked about, I mean, because they had two different, scenarios. They actually ran two different ways. One model showed that Woodbridge was going to have a very slight decrease in population over a period of time. And then the other model said it was going to be,
It was
no
It
growth.
looks like it's pretty stable.
And stable, both of which are not good things for a town to have responsible growth, because you need to have some amount of growth if you want to be able to be vibrant, pay taxes and
But
not.
if our population is projected to be stable and we add some affordable housing, then we're growing,
Yeah,
okay? If our population is declining, we don't add any more housing, we're not growing, we're declining. So if we're stable, we add some housing, we're growing, and we got our growth.
right.
So all of these things are pretty complicated, and if we start getting into them, this whole thing will be an awful lot longer. If we chop them out entirely, then it's going to look quite different. So since we have, or do we need to consider the fact that we need to be in concert with the POCD? Is there any advantage to that? Are they using the SCROG data?
In what
They're
context?
They're using the.
Just in a conversational context.
No, I'm sorry.
I'm
I mean,
That's a good point.
which data you're talking about? I mean, which specific data? Because there's some of it makes no sense for us to include, and some of it might, but it's not uniform.
It was just, the stuff that's on the SCROG thing, how many people are in the Alice category, how many people are,
I don't know
you
if
know,
the
that
POCD
stuff.
even has the
that's SCROG page.
Alice.
It wouldn't. but it
Yeah, the
would have.
POCD doesn't have Alice, so I think that's fine. The other statistics, they would basically be the same. I mean, the population projections were
The one thing
the
that-
POCD, because they did two different ways, they actually matched up to the SCROG, because they matched one way of, which matched the way SCROG projected the population. So I don't think there's gonna be much, I don't feel like it's going to be a problem. I do think that we should, in terms of where you get into the demographics, we need to have like a disclaimer that anything that has to do with demographics, please refer to the community, survey information, not the community survey. They have a community profile from the POCD that has all the demographic information that if people are interested in the demographic information to, maybe we have a link into the POCD
There's
for
not
that.
much point to that because nobody's going to be following it. So the main question is whether we take out all of that, anything that could require a reference to, you know where it is, everybody's commented on it. We either just take all of that material out entirely and we don't talk about any of it, or we put the SCROG or whatever other source that we have and simply say something equivocal like current data sources, according to current data, the most recent
You can't
data
say that.
sources.
You can't say that.
You could
Because
say
then-
the most recently available data sources.
But you've got to cite it.
Something
You got to
like
cite it then.
Yeah, I wouldn't get into it
No,
at
I
all.
would
It's
just-
it's irrelevant.
I mean, what I really would like to see is I would like to see different types of housing explained in the affordable housing plan. I want to know what a block of 4 is. I want to know what a block of 6 is.
Okay,
I want
we're
to know
not going there yet.
but it should be in an affordable housing plan, so a person can pick it up and read it and understand it.
We
Okay?
are going to do that for the next affordable housing plan. We're not
Yeah.
going to do that for this one, because we need to move on to that one so we could have a strong.
Isn't some of that stuff in the later part? Don't they have illustrations of different
Yeah, we do.
multiple?
I've only been working on the first part, so I
multi-housing?
kind of
Yeah, no,
forgot.
there is in that
Yeah,
96
it's a
pages.
much
Russ.
longer.
It's a lot in there. There's
Yeah.
way too much in there.
Yeah. Well, could we just,
So make
once,
that decision, and then we can either cut out all that language, or we can put in that citation with a suitable disclaimer of some kind.
Let's cut the data out
Yeah, I would
and
too.
go with, we need to do this, and this is what we're recommending we do.
Okay, so I don't know what that looks like. I don't know whether that's gonna cause problems with continuity and so forth.
Well,
So I'll just let you know if it does.
Okay.
Later on.
I mean, your first page, the preface, which is number 1. I think that looks fine. Paragraph 2, I'm not sure we need to talk about where the monthly meetings were held, the library, Temple Manual, and Elaine's house. I don't think we need to
Yep.
tell everybody they were in Elaine's house.
Well, I kind of reworked that language.
Yeah, but I mean,
What'd you say?
I reworked that language in the comments.
I like the last paragraph there in blue, which talks, pretty basic.
Yeah, but going back to what Chris was just talking about in that paragraph for Elaine's house, just put a period out throughout,
No, but did you see the language I reworked that?
I have your comments on it.
So just read it out.
Yeah, read it out loud, Kathy, I'm not sure, because you mean subsequent to May?
Oh, I'm looking
20
at Chris's comments, I'm sorry. Let me just get
I just
that.
printed what you said.
So what I have
at the
is
end of the day
subsequent to
today.
May 25th.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
so.
So you wrote, subsequent to May 25th, 2022, the committee had monthly meetings which provided for public comment, held public sessions and community conversations through 2023.
Right, just put, after
Period.
conversations, put the period.
Yeah.
Don't even say 2023,
All right,
because it's really through
Oh, yeah. right.
25, so just
Okay,
put
so
a
then
period there.
Subsequent, yeah.
And then we eliminate the rest of the
Yep.
Yeah.
Temple and then the rest of the details. Okay, I've got that.
And anyway, it's Elaine and Bob's house, just saying.
Thank you.
Don't mention. Okay, let's see.
Okay. So I can't read through this, I can't read through anything without tweaking it. So it says the following report, I'm,
Let me ask you,
You'll see
can you save this as version
it's version.
7/9/2025 and then
Yeah.
just change that? Are you able to do that? Like, because if you could save it as today's date, modify it, you still have yesterday's.
Oh, yeah, I have all of those.
So then we can just,
I must
you can
have-
just modify, we can modify it.
15 versions.
I know, there's a lot. That's why I sent you the old one, because I didn't know what the newer ones were.
No.
Because this page 1 looks pretty straightforward. Page 2,
So you're okay with the wording at the bottom was what we had to put in some kind of prefatory remark indicating that this.
Yeah.
So, and we're gonna put the page numbers in there, just page so-and-so to so-and-so
Yeah.
is being updated.
yes, yeah.
Okay.
I think we can take out the first full line on page 2. The data provided in the bulk of this document continues to be based on data and circumstances in 2022. You should take that out. You could just say a full revision of the affordable housing plan should be expected in 2023 according to, and it says a mandated timeline, but what is the general statute? There's a general statute number. I thought we just put that in there, according to the general statute, such and such,
8-J something,
whatever the number is.
8-30J.
Sorry, hold on. I'm doing something here technical. Okay, so where are we? The committee, what to do, where are we?
Page 2,
Yeah,
after the end of the last sentence from page 1, take out the next line. The data provided in the bulk of this document, take that line out through 2022.
But leave in a
so,
full
but that's
revision.
not true. In the bulk of the document, with the exception of pages, whatever they are that we're working on right now, is in fact still based on circumstances and information available in 2022.
Okay, you're right, because all that's still.
Okay, yeah.
All right, then leave it.
Push back,
All
sorry.
right, leave it. All right, then you're just gonna do the next line and add the Connecticut General Statute. According to Connecticut General Statute.
Well, why would we be saying continue to be? Wouldn't you just say war-based?
R-based.
Yeah, or-based.
R-based.
Yeah, because we're not, continuous, not relevant either.
Okay.
Because it is
Alright.
based on data from 2022. It's not, yeah.
Well, okay. And when we said was we changed one thing, so the others continue to be. But that's, let's hope, nobody's gonna read it anyway. So what you're saying is a full revision should be expected in 2027 according to Connecticut statute, whatever? Is that where you want that?
I think that so then people understand why. It's because we have to do it according to Connecticut General Statute.
Okay.
Yeah.
And why don't we say that instead
That's
of
fine.
mandated timeline?
Yeah, that's what I said, just
That's
put that
fine.
instead of mandated
That's
time.
a suggestion.
Okay,
As it currently stands though, there's gonna be some other
stuff.
stuff that's gonna come out of the,
Yeah, but we're only gonna work with what we're working with now.
this is like
Actually-
in real time.
It's whack-a-mole. You know, we're gonna do one thing and then there's gonna be something else pass and. you know,
Okay, so
it's just-
if you look at page 5, affordable housing plans effective, Connecticut general statutes, blah, 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 requires, it's all down there. So you could just say, see page 4.
No, just, I mean, you know what,
See page-
if you have it in 2 places, that's fine. I think that's fine.
Okay, fine.
Yes.
Okay.
So have we made it to the bullet points in the boxes?
First bullet point.
I'm sorry, where are you now? I lost my.
The bullet points in
Page
the
2,
boxes on page 2.
yeah, the first bullet point.
Okay. And,
Yes.
The box next to it, keeping current residents in town while attracting new residents would seem a priority in terms of maintaining the vitality of the community, period. Because we're not gonna get into whether the
Yeah.
population's declining or not.
Yep.
Just period.
Mhm.
Okay?
no, there's not much left in the box.
Correct.
A
Correct.
smaller
We'll have
box.
to come up with something else.
We don't need to have a
more.
96-page affordable housing. Other people don't like to do this.
A small box.
Okay.
All right, let me- that's one for sure. Let's go here for now.
Lou, you had delete, in the second bullet, you had suggested we capitalize the word town. Does that mean you think we should take out the first 3 words, or what?
That was my change.
Yeah.
Sounds like something I would change. We'll refer to a specific
I
town,
wondered
so that's the
about
only
that.
reason, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
That's
You're-
I
you're
it's
see.
just a
referring to
it's a grammatical
Got it.
thing, yeah, not
Got
a-
it, that's fine. Makes
And
sense.
why is aquifer highlighted in green? Mine is anyway.
Oh, because there's a comment by Chris that's related to it.
Okay.
The only comment I have is, who would pay for this infrastructure?
That's a good point.
But,
Well, but it's,
Well,
I mean,
in the context, it's not
Well-
relevant. It just says if you should support the expansion.
Yeah, I think,
I gotta say, I'm gonna go back to David Fink for a second. When he said that the town should pay for a road so a developer can make a profit, I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think we should be paying for a road so the developer can make a profit. I just don't think that's what we should be doing.
well, I think what
If we
he's-
could find a way to do this with grants or some sort of other funding, that's different, but
well, I don't disagree with that, but sometimes you build a road or build something so that you can get something that
Incentivize.
gives you, a
The-
return.
the
I mean,
thing
it
is-
should be in your interest to do it.
yes, the developers now build roads and then we all pay for them because we have to pay for them anyways, so.
I think the idea was if you provide some incentives for developers to want to come into town to build housing, because a developer's not gonna build a development if they can't make a profit.
Correct, but the profit shouldn't come off my back and Lou's or anybody else's.
Well,
Okay, if the town can find a way to find grants to support the developer, that's different. I'm all in favor of that, but not off the Woodbridge
well,
tax.
sometimes you
tax
have to
rolls.
make investments in
Yeah.
order to get more investments.
So Chris, did you have any questions about or concerns about the second box?
The second box,
Appropriate design and placement of higher density.
we're gonna leave
more
that, no,
open
not right now,
space.
no, not right now.
You're good, okay. So what about appropriate development of higher density with affordable set-asides has been proven to provide economic development? We're gonna just take that out so
Wait,
we don't
where's
get.
that?
We don't get, that's third box. We don't get into that, is that Lewis had suggested we delete the first sentence in the third box. Appropriate development of higher density housing with affordable set-asides has been proven to provide economic
Not unless you want to show me.
Yeah, I crossed that off, right?
Right, so that's okay with everybody.
I don't know why it's approved.
Okay, well, concerns have been expressed that the need for more and diverse housing
Looking at this.
in Woodbridge will result in higher education costs. Many studies and empirical evidence show that the ratio of school children to units in higher density housing is much lower than in 4 to 5 bedroom single family.
That's,
So do we need to clarify that we're talking about small unit, higher density housing? Rather
that's
than just high density
something that
housing?
we really should spend some time on, because that is a big sticking point for a lot of people, and including me. Because I have rental properties and I know people are clamoring to get into town, and I know this because they want to rent my 1-bedroom apartment with 2 kids. So I understand that while that may be empirical in the global sense, but in the Woodbridge sense it's a little bit different. So I think we should take some time on that.
Well, but I think the point is that my understanding is that we can clarify
Okay.
that the empirical evidence, the studies and empirical evidence are focused on studios, 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom, not just any unit. And furthermore, remember what David said, I thought that was very interesting, that
Yeah.
it's really up to the town to enforce the occupancy
Right,
laws.
right.
It's not up to us to try to
Correct.
socially.
So we should say
manipulate.
something regarding
So if we
Smaller
say,
units.
okay, many said
smaller units are,
small and higher, how could we do that?
I don't know if we can do that. I think you take it out entirely.
Well, I think this is an important point. I mean, there are many studies and empirical evidence show that the ratio of school children to units in higher density housing, and maybe just say 1, studio, 2 bedrooms, parentheses, is much lower than in a 4 or 5 bedroom single family structure.
It may be lower. How about that? Couch it with maybe lower, because it may or may
It
not.
is-
Well, yeah, I mean, and I think there are some towns that have had different experiences, okay? I think, it isn't always going to be the case that.
Nothing is always going to be the case.
Correct.
Well, I mean,
What did you say,
Fannie-
Mary?
Fannie
You know,
Mae's-
Nothing is always
I
going to
actually
be
learned
the
a
case.
school thing. I mean, with the amount of deferred maintenance and stuff that has to be taken care of, I'm not so sure this is the biggest issue.
I'm a little concerned that we might have 2 issues. We might have to rebuild a school and build another school because
if you're having to fix it up, you may end up having to expand it anyway.
Yeah.
That's what I'm.
We're the 2nd largest elementary school in the entire state already. So I don't know that that's a good thing to be. I'm not sure we want to be the largest elementary school in the state. I don't know that we have an alternative. I don't think we can afford as a town to build another elementary school. It's just too expensive.
No, I mean, I think that's right, but it looks like we're probably going to have to,
We're
in
gonna
addition to fix it up there, I suspect it's going to have to be,
Yeah.
it'll likely be expanded.
Yeah.
Because why wouldn't you do that? I mean, why would you build something that, 5 years from now would be,
Yes.
oh shit, we got the same problem again.
Yeah. I know this is going to be a real challenge.
So,
It is.
so will this work? Listen,
I think that's another.
really, just adding one word.
Yeah.
Show that the ratio of school children to units in smaller, higher density housing is much lower than in 4 or 5
Maybe,
bedroom.
how about maybe
single.
much lower?
It is.
You can't
That's
say
what-
it
no, no,
is like
all
it's,
it-
like
all-
the sun's going to come up tomorrow.
No,
It's
excuse
not a
me,
fact.
excuse me, you have to look at the sentence.
Okay.
It says many studies and empirical evidence. It doesn't say
Right.
everybody in the whole wide world believes this. It
So
just
now we're
says
getting into the data thing.
studies
Okay. Look,
and the
look,
evidence show.
It's okay.
Okay.
You want to leave that in there, you're going to catch pushback on that, but
We-
we're gonna move on.
We're gonna
Okay.
invite
Because
that.
I'm not gonna sit
We
here until
invite
10
that.
o'clock.
Because if people
move
are
on.
worried about it, then we need to talk about it, Chris, that's what you're
Yes,
saying,
we
right?
need to talk
We
about
need to
this for
talk about
a significant amount of time. We can't just brush
Well,
over it.
we did talk about the community
We did
conversation.
talk about it
and
Yeah, but I was
constantly.
not told that we were gonna do that before I booked a vacation in March.
well,
So, you know, what are we gonna do?
okay.
All right? If I were there, I would have questioned him as well. I would have said, look,
Well-
look at the documentation, look at the report from our own superintendent, from our own school system that says our school population is going to keep creeping up.
No one's questioning that. People are just saying that, you know, if you build a studio, one-bedroom apartments, that you're gonna be overloaded.
They're less
by
likely
things.
to have more students.
Well,
Yeah.
there's,
Okay, why can't we just say that? They're less likely to have more students.
What's the difference?
What's the difference? I don't see the.
The difference is 45 people standing in front of this committee yelling at you for not saying,
Because they don't believe in the studies and empirical evidence, and if you
no,
don't.
because there's other studies and empirical evidence that show the other opposite.
I never
Likely.
seen,
Likely.
I have never seen studies
never
that
seen
show
one
that
either.
studio
I-
apartments
all
for
right.
children.
Okay.
defense of Chris's
Okay.
formulation here, I mean, it makes the point, and it doesn't, you know, and it's less likely to antagonize people. We don't want to antagonize them, and it still makes the point. So-
One of the things in the superintendent's report talks about the fact that, and I think I've said this before, people tend to find a town they want to move into, they get married, move into a town, and have children a few years later. So there's a 5 to 7 or 8 year time span where they're paying taxes and not sending any kids to school. Woodbridge is different. Woodbridge, people tend to look at Woodbridge when their children are 5 and then look for a house in Woodbridge, okay? That was in that report. I have a manager in my store who's doing exactly that thing right now with his wife. They've got a 5-year-old and a 1.5-year-old, and they're looking for a house in Woodbridge. They're doing exactly what was in the report. We're unique, we're different, it's okay, it's good, but we need to recognize that. So let's move on to page 3.
So how are we wording that?
I think we're moving on.
Hopefully Dave already.
Well, you'll see,
You'll send it out and then we'll
I'll put it
comment
in,
again.
you can.
Okay. Page 3. Yes?
Page 3.
Starts on the bottom of page 2.
What's the first line on this page? Is it Woodbridge should support? Or I got that wrong?
Woodbridge has recently amended its zoning
You know,
regulations. Is that
The
page 3?
page numbers
Page-
don't line up with.
Well, that's because they're moving
This.
around as we
I'm
add
sorry,
things and
with
take them
this.
out.
They don't
Okay,
line up.
so we are on the 1, 2, 3, 4th bullet. Woodbridge has recently amended its zoning
Yes.
regulations,
Oh, okay.
okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Find
Good.
additional opportunities to increase in addressing the presence of nationally affordable housing in town. The committee acknowledges the
That's
blah,
the
blah,
5th
blah,
bullet,
blah,
right?
blah, blah, blah. That's number 4, and number 5 has some comments about it. Let's see, Woodbridge should support the construction or conversion of buildings in the commercial district to be mixed use. Yeah, you had a comment about that, Chris, but
I
it
did.
doesn't, you're not asking for a change.
No, I support it. I think it's the smart way to go.
Great. Okay.
I also would like a bullet point about accessory dwelling units, but I don't know if we're gonna get one.
Yeah, next time around, since we've got better.
Okay, the formatting is a little wacky at these bullets.
Pardon me?
The formatting.
That's what I said, do not look at the formatting, it's moving around
Yeah.
as we do the
Okay.
messing. I'm not taking time to do that right now, but I will fix it, do not
Okay.
worry. So my suggestion was that we put the old committee and the new committee in there. Do you want me to do that? I mean, the current committee and the opportunity study committee, the original committee.
Okay.
That sounds good.
Okay, page 5, executive summary. Why in the world do we start with this subject?
I,
With 8:30G? Why did they do that? That doesn't make any sense.
You're saying, why did we do it?
Why did, well, our KG did it.
well, I would, you know, we could change this for the next plan. I don't think we want to start moving.
I was just gonna do this.
Well, I mean, we want to put the overview under the affordable housing plan. That's fine.
That was just my
That's all,
suggestion.
okay, that's fine, I think that's fine. But I wouldn't.
I'm not.
If you
I
wanna-
just, but you know, if you know 830G and you know the blood pressure level of people who talk about it, to start your housing plan with 830G just didn't make any sense to me, you know.
I think if you want to do, just start with the affordable housing plan and follow it by 8-30G, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay, do we want to, let's see, can everybody see the changes? We can- those changes have been there since forever, the strikeouts and the wording.
We're in the,
Conditions.
which paragraph?
Do you want me to read it?
No, I'm just trying to, I can see here.
Section.
That's what I thought.
We are gonna start with 830G to look at it and make changes in the wording. I don't see anything there that's controversial.
Looks good.
Next page, we get into the citation business and we take out
Hold
letter.
hold on,
Whereas-
I'm looking at the comments, and I think Lou made a comment about the moratorium. And there's nothing in here about the moratorium.
Well, I think what Mary Dean put in is, in her box right below mine, she has some suggested language.
Okay.
It's also on the next page, which is another.
Yeah, but we
reason
want to
for
stress that,
switching.
because people are going to see 10% and they're going to.
So yeah, but because it does say here, community is exempt from this appeals process only if at least 10% of the community's housing stock is designated affordable, and that's not actually true. If we hit the moratorium, we're exempt for.
Well, so you can say,
It's temporary.
however, you know, you can get a temporary
Yes.
reprieve if you.
So if you want to put that in, I was suggesting, quote, temporary
Yes, I
think
moratorium
that
of
makes
4
sense.
years can be granted after a community shows it is successfully adding affordable housing units and it's
Yeah,
reached a set
2%,
rate.
is it 2%?
Well,
Or
you
is
have.
it now
Oh,
different?
the rates calculation, you don't want to even get into that.
Okay, it's reached a set rate, okay, you got that.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's a moratorium, I mean, there's how to reach a moratorium.
I found the Greenwich, see it in the note, I put it in there, the link. The Greenwich Town has a really good
Yeah.
Q&A section. And it's very clear in moratorium, of course, it's like this, but it's very
Well, the
clear.
Partnership for Strong Communities has a very good Q&A.
I don't think their Q&A is myself. I don't think it covers all the territory.
I thought the Greenwich one was really,
Okay.
was really low.
I have to admit, I didn't
Take a
look
look
in.
at it. Yeah. Now,
The language
if
that
you
Mary
want
Dean-
a citation, there's the citation. Do you want the citation?
What's that?
CGA, Connecticut Code, 2017, blah, blah. I can put that in.
Wait, I'm sorry, I lost it again. Where are we now?
We are on page 5, executive summary, 830G overview, first paragraph. Comments in the right column.
But the language you gave before, Mary Dean, is good, but I would just put the word however in front of it after we say it's only if you have 10%, however, you get the moratorium. Just for polling purposes.
Only if you put a semicolon in front, however, if you don't refuse to.
I was going to have it in a separate
Or
paragraph in
parentheses.
parentheses.
Oh, even better, a separate sentence. Without that, you're dead to me.
Yeah, you guys have another whack at it for the little bits and pieces.
Jimmy, you know, my wife reads books on grammar every night. Other people read
Oh,
historical
English grammar is
fiction.
ridiculous. You go,
Yeah, she
it's
loves-
not
she loves that
systematic,
stuff.
it
That's
just makes no
scary.
sense,
You
so.
imagine? It's
Oh, my
absolutely
God.
it's scary.
Was that about grandma?
That's right. And our cookies.
So, where are you guys?
I was gonna ask you what's next.
Are we at the
Anything
second
else on page
paragraph?
5?
No, I think the second paragraph is fine, on page 5.
Page 5. Affordable housing plans, yeah. There was some duplication there, that's all that.
Yes,
Yeah.
whatever, yeah, you took that
That's
out at the
that's a
top.
piece of cake.
That makes sense.
Okay, now on 6. So.
If we take out the red in the first paragraph, the red in the second paragraph, and in the third paragraph,
It's
we
below.
put a citation on the 80% of AMI and that information, put a citation for that. And
Where?
we've made that page a lot smaller.
We sure do.
How many strikeouts on that?
Okay, so
What, I'm sorry, what
That's-
page?
Area meetings.
we're
Six.
page,
Take out
page
red,
6.
these two red, and
So
then that one,
it's
we put
below
a citation.
usually.
Ah,
Well,
okay.
Okay.
All right, yeah, so, because I rewrote that in terms of what we should use in terms of Woodbridge numbers.
But they're in the squawk thing that he
We
was
can't
just
use
saying
it.
we can't, we
We
shouldn't.
just shouldn't
get
use those
into it.
numbers. I mean, it's just not necessary.
Although
I
people
think-
do ask that specific
I would
question.
favor,
They ask
I
you.
take your point, Chris, and I appreciate it. But my vote is that we leave the numbers in and we just put in the data that we've got, the source of the data that we have.
If you're gonna leave numbers in, can you at least put a footnote so someone can go back and look at it?
We have the-
Absolutely.
Yeah, we have the
That's
sources,
fine.
the US.
Look, as long as you're gonna do
And
that.
I'm happy to put
If you're
in
gonna put
some
American Community Survey in there,
highly
Stress me.
equivocal wording about how whatever, I'm happy to do that too. Squishy wording. But I would put it in because it's the data what we've got.
well, this data, the data in the third paragraph about 80% of AMI equates to households earning no more than
confusing.
$67,950.
That's been updated,
Okay.
okay.
Yes, come on, because I clarified that.
Yeah, so if we can put something in that's clarified.
Because it doesn't define the numbers of it. To me, that was confusing. It doesn't clarify the number in the household.
The number of people in the house.
So,
Correct.
and that's why you said Woodbridge is classified within, to just define where it's classified, this is based on the HUD's Metro FMR area. And
Okay.
so I defined that, so for an
Yep,
individual
yep.
and a family of 4.
So that
Want to
that's-
change in
yes.
February anyway?
Did it change this February?
Oh, the numbers will change, HUD's numbers will change.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they will
And
change.
then
So
we'll-
quick, write faster.
by then there'll be a new plan.
Yeah. Yeah, I probably should put the number, right, that's for 2020.
Okay, so what would it say? Woodbridge is classified within the area, the income limit for an individual in 2025?
Good.
In 2025, the income limit for an
You know,
individual?
let me double check that, because then that might be the 2024.
Okay,
I'll have to look that up.
okay. But we're gonna put the number in there. In
Yeah,
2024 or
because
5,
Warren,
the income
Warren
limit
is
for an
right.
individual
it's gonna change.
is, let's just say was, in case it was 24, was 65 year limit family agendas, was, everybody's just gonna glaze over when they read this. Okay, so U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, is that a sufficient citation? I mean, we don't give a citation in the first paragraph,
Mhm.
which I would love to see.
Well, that's who produces these numbers for the FMRs.
Well, why don't we do in the third paragraph just what we did in the first, the U.S. Department of Housing and says,
Okay.
I'll do that, and then we don't have to say. Okay, I have to get to this before I forget all this stuff. Okay, let's see now, last paragraph, in Woodbridge, blah, blah. Note that this graphic was removed. I suggest we either delete this paragraph entirely, leaving only the definition information, or just remove the details from this paragraph as drafted, providing them elsewhere if desired. Okay, so you want to just delete that whole paragraph, or do you? In Woodbridge, many workers in the public sector could find it challenging to find affordable housing in the community.
Have we not said that
Right,
somewhere else?
we can
Or-
leave that part in. We can leave that part in.
Which-
It kind of goes with the paragraph.
Which part is that?
The last paragraph. In Woodbridge, many workers in the public sector could find it challenging to find affordable priced housing in the community where they work.
Yep, I think that's fine.
I think that
Yep,
goes with the
yep.
next paragraph.
Yep.
Okay. Page 7. Once again, we're in the money weeds.
Do we need this? You just said it. We just said it.
Yeah, this is the
We don't
cost
need-
word, we don't need to repeat
We
that.
just said it in the last sentence. You can take this, I think they
Yep.
take this page out, they just
I
said
would
it.
take the first paragraph out, but you want, I think this is where you get into the Alice calculations. I think you want to keep that in there, but I would take the first paragraph out because we did talk about,
You just said it in the previous
Okay.
sentence, yeah.
Oh, we
but I
can
think the Alice, because people need to understand Alice and to understand that there's a number, and I'm trying to think of what the number is of Alice households, but it does come out to like 280 households.
We need to get a data point on that. You
Well,
need
that's not,
something-
that's not even here.
No, but,
That's in this scribe.
yeah.
Well, it's in.
I mean, what it says here, I mean, if the 118,573 is the number, everything else in here explains what they're
There's
spending their money on.
You can put a link in there. I did.
Oh, that looks good. Yep.
If you'd like to meet Alice.
You can put a link.
Does it break down, does it give you number 4, Trish?
It says Alice Update 2024.
Is there a town update?
Looking, yes. It is total households, 3,180. % Alice in poverty, 8%.
No, but does that break down to Woodbridge?
Yeah. Right there.
8%, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, that's.
So, I mean, it's easy to put a link in there. It's another solution to the problem. But I think that, the reason I put that comment in was I think it was different than what you had. No, it's not. No, it's, no, we'll worry about that later. Okay. Okay, are we on page 8? You're okay with the citations and everything?
PG.
This section is not a history.
Right. I suggested, what did I suggest?
What is, oh no, what is affordable housing?
Well, we've already got that, so that,
Right.
and page 6.
I thought I said something.
I noticed this the last time through, that the bullet point says assisted housing, but that term is never used again. Then they use subsidized housing. Is that meant to be the same thing?
That's a good question.
Probably is the same.
If we define assisted housing in the way that is defined there in the additional
It does
text.
sound like subsidized.
Well,
housing.
subsidized housing is the umbrella of which government assisted is a part of it. Because you have, they break it down to Chaffee, USD, mortgages, tenant rental assistance, government assisted. So subsidized housing is
The overall
overall.
term.
Would it be more useful
So-
to move page 8 to the bottom of page 6? So let's talk about what is affordable housing and what does it mean to your community. And just looking at this, would that make more sense to put that there and then show what our current subsidized housing inventory is? Would it all fit there? Would it make it fit there?
Well, not if we use the graph.
Not if we use the graph.
So I'm concerned about this definition of business because I added a definition for assisted housing, but I want to make sure that I didn't accidentally say, give
Where
the
did you put the
definition for
definition?
subsidized, after the word assisted housing in parentheses.
That's what you added, Mary?
Yeah, a long time ago, and I don't remember where I got it.
Uh-huh.
So I need to make sure that the definitions are correct. And if we're going to distinguish between one and the other.
We probably got that, do you remember where we got the definition?
No, that's a problem.
I thought that was just the definition and purposes of this plan.
I've
So I'm not
seen
sure
this
if we-
definition before, I'm trying to figure out where it was.
Well, we can look that up.
Okay,
We can look that up.
And
We'll
to
fix
go into
that.
your original question, would we just call this, since you used the term government assisted in the chart, wouldn't we just call this government assisted?
Where does it say government assisted?
I mean,
Oh, I see it, the green thing. Oh, oh dear. Yeah, that suggests subset.
good pickup.
I am proud. So those four things are the four things that are in the grant, the mortgages, deed restrictions.
yeah, I mean, this is how DOH, I guess, is,
Here, it's complicated.
you know, I'm sure this is inventory in many different ways, so I don't think any way is particularly wrong. I think you just gotta pick a way and go with it, but you could probably have assisted housing as government assisted housing to keep it.
So which housing are we saying is government assisted? Is that Lucy Street housing?
That would be government assisted housing.
Any section?
I thought that was Chaffo housing.
Well, Chaffee USDA, they're talking about home ownership type of,
Okay, so
So
that's
that's-
a different Chaffo
yeah.
mortgage.
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So under subsidized housing inventory, there's chapter, so there's all those categories right on the bottom there.
Plus tenant rental assistance.
Tenant rental assistance, chapter deed
So it's not
restrictions.
exactly the same list.
What is that? Dash percent, oh, percent affordable.
Yeah, I don't know what that
Mm.
is for,
Well, that's a funny little line that jumps up and down.
percent affordable.
Oh, you mean this?
Doesn't mean
That
anything.
line?
Yeah,
I,
I don't know what that is.
It's the total.
oh, that's the line that goes
At the
across
bottom.
the, you know,
It's
this,
the total.
yeah, I mean, this chart is, because it's showing that after, a certain time, we just didn't build any affordable housing.
We actually went.
But I don't know why
down.
200, why did they call it between 2002 and 2004 when Lucy Street was built in 1990, right?
Did he refinance it? With the Chaffo loan?
That
He
was-
refinanced it at some point, I just don't know when. Maybe he refinanced it and that's when it became, or is that the
You
beginning?
know what they, maybe they realized because technically that Chaffin mortgage only had 6 affordable housing units in
Yeah.
there, but then they just said because it's by virtue of the fact that the Chaffin mortgage, all of it could count as affordable, even though only 6 units are restricted as affordable. So maybe that's what it was. They
And
figured
which
it out.
Get out, sure.
tenant rental assistance means section 8 in most cases?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we,
Okay.
Kathy and I will take it in hand to make sure that the definition is not wrong. Can we go to page 9? And are we going to, can we go to page 9?
Community overlay, yeah.
And can we just strike the sentence over the past decade? And leave it out and not worry about it anymore?
Yeah, why don't we just take that out?
Did we change the, did we get rid of assisted housing here? Because as I'm now looking at the chart, it appears that
Yeah, I think we're
assisted
gonna call it
housing
government
includes tenant rental assistance and government assisted.
Oh, you're right.
That's why they made a distinction. That's I think why it's a different definition, because it includes both the government assisted and the tenant rental assistance. I think that's what that means. You have to go over. Receiving rental assistance. I make it distinct. That's a little blue one, that's a little green one, and that's both of those are one there.
Yeah, but it's different in that
For you?
Don't worry, we have many more pages to go.
can you take the excitement or
Go to
what?
sleep. I know, he's sitting on the edge of his chair.
Yeah, I mean the chat. Let me see. I don't.
That is confusing.
Let me see. Government assistance to construct
The way this
house.
chart is, it's very confusing.
Right, this is rental assistance, so assisted housing is rental assistance, that's why I'm saying CHAFA and USDA is not rental, that's for home ownership.
Okay.
D.
Or housing occupant receiving rental assistance. Okay,
That's
assisted housing.
that definition
Oh,
is probably. not
Right, all right, tenant, you're saying tenant rental assistance also, yeah, okay.
I
I
think
got you.
that's why they make a distinction between government assistance and tenant rental assistance, and the
Yeah,
two of them
probably.
are together assisted housing. That's what I think the definition was
Gotcha.
that way.
Gotcha, so that assisted housing is just assisted housing,
Yeah,
of which government assisted and tenant rental assistant,
yeah, those are
belongs.
the constituents, yeah.
Okay.
that's fine,
No, because
We'll come up with
it's
something.
because that's what the chart,
yeah,
it,
I don't think there's anything.
gotcha.
We ought to read charts.
Issue
Okay.
brief. I think I'd have to read the issue brief, which I am not
Are we
volunteering
almost
to
done?
do.
we're getting there.
Okay, are we on
Going back
page
to
9?
page 6 for a second.
Oh, sure.
Minor grammatical.
Minor, oh no, not grammatical, okay.
It says, what is affordable housing? What does it mean to your community? Why don't we say our community?
Thank you.
I like that.
I can sort of pass over.
That's
I
good.
concur.
Questions.
That's
Well,
good.
if the reader is a resident of Woodbridge, then
It's Woodbridge's or affordable housing.
But it's us too.
It's
what
our
is
community.
affordable housing, what does it mean to your community? We are speaking to them. This document is speaking to an individual, and they are a member of the community. That's why they said that. But our community is fine.
We save a letter.
It doesn't mean.
Yeah.
Save a
Type
letter.
7, type
Oh,
17.
man, I'm there. But I'd rather be on page 9.
All right.
Okay, so we agreed on getting rid of the overpass
Rising
deck
regional
thing.
labor housing. In particular, in the past few years, since 2019, getting right up there now. It's not just a few years. So I had suggested, if you want to have that in there, you say since COVID-19 or something like that. Take out since. We could take out the whole clause, particularly in the past few years. Phrase, there's no. What do you want to do?
I think in the years immediately after the COVID outbreak, I think that's fine.
Okay. It's not-
So,
not
I mean,
a-
I'm reading this in the first sentence. What do the other sentences add to the first sentence? Woodbridge is a community that is experiencing increasing housing costs located within an increasingly high-priced region. They just reiterate that, okay? You could say that these changes in the local housing market and economy have caused prices to increase beyond what is considered affordable for many existing households, but you need to have some sort of footnote for that.
Huh?
You can say it, as well as make it difficult for many local workers to afford to live within the community of work. You could say that, but I think you need a footnote for it.
What would you footnote?
Like, where's that come from? How do we know that? We know it based on something, right?
studies and empirical evidence.
Yeah, that doesn't
And
work.
just,
Well, it's not, you know.
I think some things are self-evident.
No, they're not.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, these.
Go to your college professor and hand him some self-evident work and
No,
you're gonna get back with a big fat
I
F.
think we
All
could get
right.
the
It's
self-evident.
getting late.
Yeah,
Who's the audience anyway?
Yeah,
it's people reading the,
yeah.
residents.
I mean, it's just,
Yeah, I
that's
think,
been stated over and over again
Yeah.
in many different sources.
okay, we're almost done.
And the really critical thing is your conclusion based on that conclusion? And if it's not, you know, if it's not directly relevant, if it's not based exclusively on that, then you'll keep going. Okay? That's all we want to do it again. Is subsidized housing right? Yes, it is. Okay, yeah. I don't have any other changes there.
So, where are we now?
I hope we're on page 10.
Okay.
That's our housing
Is
goals?
this housing goals or?
Housing goals.
Bullet 3 is bolder, is that on purpose?
That was Lewis's suggestion.
Okay.
Which was that?
Which one, the one that's?
What are they called?
Yeah,
That's a
I'm not a big
diversified.
fan of bold for lettering. In bullet 2, I point out that we can't really provide housing options.
Encourage.
So
How about
Kathy
encourage?
recommended, yeah, you like, Kathy recommended, said recommend housing options, encourage, any of that stuff.
Like, any,
Encourage them.
Encourage is
encourage is
fine.
fine.
Encourage is
If I bolded that paragraph, take it off. I don't know why I did that either. I shouldn't have. I was running haywire with my mouse.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, I'm bold.
Okay, I'll take that out.
Bullet point 4, you're gonna say income diversity.
And you can, let's see, increase the diversity of residents. I said, we could say income diversity, as so much falls out from that, but I prefer not to. That's
Okay,
okay.
whatever.
Diversity of residents, that covers a lot of territory, which is what we want to cover. Okay. Okay, so population decline, are you guys
I would
there?
take that one out. I
Yeah,
would take bullet point 6 out.
Let's get rid of
So, the recommendation was maintain
Did I think
population
I-
at a level for desirable sharing of the cost of municipal services.
Did I say something?
What was that?
I thought I wrote something about this.
Woodbridge, you just said Woodbridge population is either stagnant or slightly decreasing. Oh, so you would say promote responsible growth.
Yeah, because I
Use
think,
housing as a mechanism to promote responsible growth. How about that? That sounds
Yeah.
good to me.
Okay,
yeah, because I think,
That's fine.
you know, stagnant or declining,
Promote responsible growth, period. Okay.
You want to cut out help spread the tax burden? Or is that okay, Chris?
You can leave it in.
Yeah.
See.
I was like, okay, Lewis was concerned about the reference to the flats.
Right, because it could always be used against, you know, with segregating. They could start segregating that or
So
something.
some people in the flats feel like a lot of things are pushed
Yep.
down onto the flats.
Yes.
So I think that's sensitive to take that out.
So what does the 2030 Commission call it?
The big area, the flats. I
It's
call
not the
it,
word
I call it the
it's the
flats.
concept.
Is it okay to call it the flats here?
Yes, and if anybody questions you, just say Chris Dickerson said we call it the flats. There you go.
Yeah, take it up with him.
I live in the flats, I was born in the
Give you his
flats.
number right
I
there.
wasn't
Yeah.
questioning
Yeah, easy to
the
find.
political correctness.
Easy to find them. They're all the
flats. I was-
Yeah.
Okay, I don't see anything else more on that page. And then, as I mentioned last time, Chris had a comment about the locational analysis page that I thought I hadn't included before.
Oh, okay, so this is when we're looking at where we
So-
can do things. Where
Yeah,
feasible sites.
and remember that in the original, this has a page-sized map associated with
Yes.
it that we can't change.
Which we can't really read,
We
but.
can't change, so, yeah, exactly, so,
I mean, the challenge is, I'm looking at, Bradley Road is
I
gone,
mean, it's
Merritt
got
Avenue's
some,
gone.
it's dated, but then so
it
is
is
the
dated.
rest of the document, so where do we start saying this is too dated?
Well, can't we just say something like, since, 2022, these parcels are
Yeah, these parcels are no longer
no
held.
longer available?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll put it at the end.
And that's it. Right.
So bad.
Oh, so it's Bradley Road and also Merritt?
Merritt Avenue, yeah, it's already been sold, and they're, I guess, gonna build.
Is that development happening yet, or?
I mean, they built two family houses there, they have a subdivision, I don't know if you may not have been on TPZ when
No,
it was approved, were you?
Yeah.
Because it was
It's been-
approved.
it's been a while.
It's sitting there,
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on with it. Yeah.
And so I wonder whether or not because it hasn't been developed yet.
Two
two
family
units.
houses have been built.
Yeah, but
so
there's 14 there supposed to be.
yes, they have not been started.
Right, so that's what I'm saying, maybe we could,
Put a lot of asterisks next to it, it hasn't been completed.
so I don't know whether or not to take that off, is what I'm suggesting.
Okay, so I will clean it up, I will send it out,
Thank
and
you.
you can read through it one more time. And you can make it. any
Mary,
other
thank you so
changes
much,
you
really.
need.
This was very productive. It has to be very boring for anybody watching on TV, but it
Well,
was very
I-
productive.
If you play it late enough at night, it'll help them get to sleep.
That's true.
But it was productive.
If you watch it
That's true.
with several glasses of wine, it helps as well.
I don't think we're gonna get 100 views on this one.
Never know. Anything else we gotta do?
Oh, they're gonna
Yeah.
show.
Motion to adjourn?
What are they calling it, the flats? Oh, no.
Oh, shoot. Hey.
Second, all in
Yes,
favor?
it has.
Adjourn.